The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, address delivered by Swamiji in Ramanad in 1897, Part 3. There are two great obstacles on our path in India, the scylla of the old orthodoxy and the Charybdis of modern European civilization. Of these two, I vote for the old orthodoxy and not for the Europeanized system. For the old orthodox man may be ignorant, he may be crude, but he is a man. He has a faith, he has strength, he stands on his own feet. While the Europeanized man has no backbone, he is a mass of heterogeneous ideas picked up at random from every source. And these ideas are unassimilated, undigested, and unharmonized. He does not stand on his own feet, and his head is turning round and round. Where is the motive power of his work? In a few patronizing pats from the English people, his schemes of reforms, his vehement vituperations against the evils of certain social customs have, as the mainspring, some European patronage. Why are some of our customs called evils? Because the Europeans say so. That is about the reason he gives. I would not submit to that. Stand and die in your own strength. If there is any sin in the world, it is weakness. Avoid all weakness. For weakness is sin. Weakness is death. These unbalanced creatures are not yet formed into distinct personalities. What are we to call them? Men, women, or animals? While those old orthodox people were staunch and were men, there are still some excellent examples, and the one I want to present before you now is your Raja of Ramanad. Here you have a man than whom there is no more zealous a Hindu throughout the length and breadth of this land. Here you have a prince than whom there is no prince in this land better informed in all affairs, both oriental and occidental, who takes from every nation whatever he can that is good. Learn good knowledge with all devotion from the lowest caste. Learn the way to freedom, even if it comes from a pariah, by serving him. If a woman is a jewel, take her in marriage, even if she comes from a low family of the lowest caste. Such is the law laid down by our great and peerless legislator, the divine Manu. This is true. Stand on your own feet and assimilate what you can. Learn from every nation. Take what is of use to you. But remember that as Hindus, everything else must be subordinated to our own national ideals. Each man has a mission in life, which is the result of all his infinite past karma. Each of you was born with a splendid heritage, which is the whole of the infinite past life of your glorious nation. Millions of your ancestors are watching, as it were, every action of yours. So be alert. And what is the mission with which every Hindu child is born? Have you not read the proud declaration of Manu regarding the Brahmin, where he says that the birth of the Brahmin is for the protection of the treasury of religion? I should say that is the mission not only of the Brahmin, but of every child, whether boy or girl, who is born in this blessed land for the protection of the treasury of religion. And every other problem of life must be subordinated to that one principal theme. That is also the law of harmony in music. There may be a nation whose theme of life is political supremacy. Religion and everything else must become subordinate to that one great theme of its life. But here is another nation whose great theme of life is spirituality and renunciation, whose one watchword is that this world is all a vanity and a delusion of 3 days, and everything else, whether science or knowledge, enjoyment or powers, wealth, name or fame, must be subordinated to that one theme. The secret of a true Hindu's character lies in the subordination of his knowledge of European sciences and learning, of his wealth, position, and name to that one principal theme which is inborn in every Hindu child: the spirituality and purity of the race. Therefore, between these two, the case of the orthodox man who has the whole of that life, spring of that race, spirituality, and the other man whose hands are full of Western imitation jewels, but has no hold on the life-giving principle, spirituality, of these, I do not doubt that everyone here will agree that we should choose the first. The orthodox, because there is some hope in him. He has the national theme, something to hold to. So he will live, but the other will die. Just as in the case of individuals, if the principle of life is undisturbed, if the principal function of that individual life is present, any injuries received as regards other functions are not serious. They do not kill the individual. So long as this principal function of our life is not disturbed, nothing can destroy our nation. But mark you, if you give up that spirituality, leaving it aside to go after the materializing civilization of the West, the result will be that in 3 generations you will be an extinct race, because the backbone of the nation will be broken. The foundation upon which the national edifice has been built will have to get a hold on spirituality and keep to it. Then stretch the other hand out and gain all you can from the other races. But everything must be subordinated to that one ideal of life. And out of that, a wonderful, glorious future India will come. I am sure it is coming. A greater India that ever was. Sages will spring up greater than all the ancient sages. And your ancestors will not only be satisfied, but I am sure they will be proud from their positions. In other words, to look down upon their descendants, so glorious and so great.